Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain, day 388 of the current situation, and more details of the effects that the pandemic has had on the Spanish economy is starting to come to light, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel by buying merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now, let's get into the news, and as I said, more details on some of the effects that the pandemic has had on the economy here in Spain have emerged, especially when it comes to employment. And as we can see, the pandemic here in Spain leaves 401,000 more unemployed in its first year and 743,000 workers in ERTE, or temporary layoff schemes. It is just over a year since the labour market suffered an unprecedented blow as a result of the pandemic. On the 12th of March 2020, a fall in registered unemployment began that ended with 900,000 jobs destroyed by the end of that month. Shortly afterwards, the ground was broken and then the rebound began. But so far it has been insufficient to return to the level of unemployment that existed before the coronavirus exploded. So things are not looking good here in Spain from an employment point of view. Lots of jobs lost last year, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. Lots of workers put into furlough schemes, and there is still a lot of doubt about whether those jobs will be recovered or not. As we saw in that piece of news, things last year started to recover a little bit. There was a slight rebound, but not enough to return to pre-pandemic figures. Now, the Spanish press in recent days has been full of stories about the millions of doses of COVID-19 vaccines that have been arriving in the country, but unfortunately they don't appear to be enough to stop the fourth wave of the pandemic. As we can see from this headline, mass vaccination has not yet prevented the arrival of the fourth wave. The pace of vaccination, clear and resounding these days as vaccines are arriving in large quantities, is not preventing an increase in infections, which brings Spain closer to the dreaded fourth wave. Although the data showing the Spanish epidemiological situation are not very reliable due to the Easter holiday, fewer tests being carried out and delays in their notification, the reality is that the cumulative incidence in the last 14 days continues to rise, reaching 163.4 cases per 100,000 inhabitants, 12 points more than last Saturday. So case numbers again here in Spain unfortunately going up, and the slow vaccination rollout, as we can see, most likely won't be able to stop that fourth wave. On the topic of vaccines, the AstraZeneca vaccine is back in the press again today as the government is considering changing the age limits for that particular vaccine. Spain's most prominent health official, Fernando Simón, is confident that Spain will approve AstraZeneca's vaccine for the over 65s very soon. The health expert sees herd immunity achievable in summer. Whether or not we reach the targets is not going to be a problem of administration capacity, he says. All expectations are placed on vaccines, those of the economy, those of society, and those of Fernando Simón. After the first quarter in which pharmaceutical companies have not met their commitments, the director of the Centre for Health Alerts and Emergencies is confident that the increase in the arrival of vials during the second quarter will cushion the impact of the fourth wave and accelerate the definitive control of the pandemic. So Mr. Simón, they're very optimistic that they will be able to quash the fourth wave through vaccination. Now, the Madrid community seems to be not very happy with the speed of the vaccination plan or the amount of doses that they are receiving, and apparently they have decided to look outside the European Union to source vaccines. As we can see here, the community of Madrid considered buying Sputnik vaccines. The community of Madrid met on up to 3 occasions with intermediaries negotiating the production and distribution of the Russian vaccine Sputnik V. One of these meetings took place on the afternoon of the 11th of February at the headquarters of the Regional Ministry of Health in Madrid. The meeting was attended by the Regional Minister of Health, Enrique Ruiz Escudero, the Deputy Regional Minister, Antonio Zapatero, the head of the Regional Minister's Cabinet, and the Director General of the Regional Department, according to ABC newspaper. So the Madrid community joining the Valencian community and trying to get their hands on Sputnik. Whether it's possible or not, I have no idea, but it just goes to show you how chaotic things can be in this country when you have 17 autonomous communities going their own way. Now, over the Easter break, some news came to light of some 3,000 Spanish citizens that decided to go to Morocco and spend their Easter holidays, but unfortunately they got stuck when Morocco closed its borders. And there are still nearly 2,000 Spaniards stranded in Morocco due to the border closures. Some 1,200 people have already been repatriated by boat and plane from Morocco, and many upon arrival are complaining about the lack of information given to them by the embassy and the government. So a little bit cheeky in my opinion, you decide to take a holiday to Morocco in spite of all the warnings from government and authorities that perhaps it's not a good time to travel in the middle of a pandemic. Morocco closes the border, and then you complain that you were stranded and not getting sufficient information from the embassy and government. Now, some more news related to that controversial airline Plus Ultra and the government bailout that it received because it was considered to be a strategic company. Other airlines are now demanding equal treatment from the government after giving Plus Ultra a premium in Venezuela. We don't know why it's strategic, they say. The Plus Ultra case is becoming increasingly embarrassing for the Spanish government, and even the main airline industry association is forced to ask it to treat all airlines trying to resume routes equally. We demand equal treatment, the president of the airline association told El Mundo. So this story continuing to cause red faces in the government, and a lot of people still looking for answers. Now let's have a look at some data about the health situation in Spain, and we'll start with the vaccination campaign, and we can see that complete vaccination has been achieved on 6.03% of the population, or some 2.85 million people, and 12.45% of the population have received at least one dose. In other words, 5.89 million people. Countrywide health data now, we can see the total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days now sitting at 163. There have been 189 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days. There are currently 8,944 people hospitalised around Spain with COVID, and there are 1,925 patients in ICUs, which is just under 20% of all ICUs in Spain. Now we'll turn our attention to Spain's neighbour Portugal, and some good news coming out of that country, and it is that things are starting to open up again. As we can see here, Portugal reopens shops, terraces and museums. Portugal begins its second phase of de-escalation on Monday. Small shops have opened, museums have opened, and students up to the age of 15 have returned to school. A maximum of 4 people are allowed to sit on terraces or outdoor seating areas. It is not a total opening, but it is a step towards normality, having bent the curve after more than 2 months of confinement. However, not everybody in Portugal is happy, and there is controversy over the opening of terraces only until 1 p.m. on weekends. Tables at bars and coffee shops are limited to a maximum of 4 people, and obviously the opening hours are by no means excessive, since from Monday to Friday they have to close at 10:30 p.m. But the controversial detail lurks when the rules governing weekends are reviewed, since the terraces are only allowed to open until 1 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays and public holidays. So a bit of a strange rule there in Portugal. Outdoor seating areas at bars and restaurants are allowed to stay open during the week until 10:30 p.m, but at weekends they have to close at 1 p.m. I don't really understand it, but I'm sure there is some logic behind the decision. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from recent videos. One here from BJ. Hola Stuart, gracias. I feel better knowing that I'm not the only reasoning skeptic out there here too. Thanks for sharing. Enjoy. Yeah, BJ, thanks for the comment. I said yesterday that I was a little bit skeptical about the government saying that they're going to have 70% of the population vaccinated by July. I think they're saying now, before it was the end of September, but they've brought that date forward to around the end of June, July. So that is why I'm a little bit skeptical, considering that things have been a little bit slow up until now. But as we can see in the press on almost a daily basis, and we saw before Spain's chief health expert Fernando Simon saying that they think they'll be able to have the pandemic under control because of mass vaccination, politicians and people like Mr. Simon are confident that they will be able to achieve their goals. But I think that maybe it's an age thing. The older I get, the more skeptical I become, because I've heard politicians tell us a lot of things over the years, and sometimes those things just don't come true. So that's most likely the reason for my skepticism. One here from Brian. Hi Stuart, just watched your video regarding Gibraltar, etc. We live in the Valencia region in a place called Pinar de Campo Verde. We have friends who have a property in San Luis near Torrevieja in the Valencia area. They have had both jabs but are non-resident. Would they be allowed to come from the UK to their holiday home after seeing what happened to nearly 40 Brits at Alicante from, I think, Manchester Airport? Yeah, Brian, thanks for the comment. Not really sure about this particular situation. It's all a bit too confusing for me at the moment, I'm afraid. But I think it would be difficult considering that your friends are non-residents. You mentioned that story there about the 40 people that were forced to return home from Spain, and they were apparently residents, so I'm not really sure what the situation would be for non-residents. Plus, I also hear that in the UK there's a possible £5,000 fine for people leaving the country to go on holiday. But I've also read recently that Spain has now taken UK citizens off that red list and they are now allowed to enter the country. So that is why I'm confused. But what I normally do in this situation is that I open the question up to the viewers, and hopefully we can get some answers to your question. One here from Frank. Thanks for the daily update again, Stuart. If they want to modernise the country, then they need to make it easier to start a business and make it easier to be a sole trader. Yeah, Frank, thanks for the comment. That is one of the plans that the government has to modernise the economy. They're talking about different things that they are going to do. For example, digitalisation. They're also talking about making Spain a more green economy. And I imagine that if they truly want to modernise the economy, they are going to make it easier to do business in this country, make it easier for people like sole traders to do business. But unfortunately, I haven't heard too much about that. Spain is still a country where it's not easy to start a business. There's still a lot of red tape in the way, and the tax regime for small business is not as friendly as it is in some other countries in Europe. But I'd like to be optimistic and think that the government is going to make some changes and make it easy for people to do business in this country. But with the current government that we have in place, I don't think that is going to happen. But again, call me skeptical. One here from Lynn. Stuart, have you talked about the President of Spain going to his large holiday home in Andalusia? He says he has left Madrid and is on business in the south of the country, but he has taken his wife and children with him. There are other government officials who have also gone on so-called business with their families too. So it's one rule for us and another for the elite. If anyone has to be asked to pay a fine because they have broken COVID rules, I would advise them to tell the authorities to bugger off. Will the mayor of Cádiz be asked to pay a fine? These people should be setting an example. I'm really angry about all this. Yelin, thanks for the comment, and to be honest, I hadn't heard anything about Prime Minister Sanchez's trip to Andalusia or any other government minister for that matter travelling around the country with their families. I did try to look into it a little bit. I went to a few newspapers, and a lot of them are saying that it is a hoax. It was something that has been invented by the right in order to discredit the left, and probably that is true. There have been some cases in the past involving the current Prime Minister. There was a scandal a couple of years ago that he went on a government airline to a concert in Valencia, I think, and there was also a scandal last year because he went on holidays and invited all of his friends to state-owned properties. And regarding the mayor of Cádiz, who you mentioned there, who was caught over the Easter break with a group of 7 people when there should have only been 6, I think he said that he will pay all of the fines out of his own pocket, but of course I don't know whether he has done so or not. But you're right, politicians and officials should be setting an example at the moment, not doing things that the rest of us can't do. And I can understand your anger, and there are a lot of people around Spain at the moment who are very angry with the current situation. One here from Erwin. Hi Stuart, it would be interesting to hear from some people about their experience after receiving the first jab. And then the second jab. Keep up with the great job, Erwin. Yeah, Erwin, thanks for the comment. There have been lots of comments in recent times from people in the UK especially that have received at least one dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, and lots of people have commented from the United States that they have received both doses. So there's plenty of people on the channel telling us about their vaccine experiences. I know at least 10 people here in Spain that have been vaccinated. In fact, I spoke to a nurse yesterday who has received both doses of the Pfizer vaccine, and she was very, very happy with the result. But again, if there's anybody out there in the community that has received their vaccination and wants to share their experience, please leave it in the comment section below so that Erwin can get an idea of what's going on. And finally, one here from Heidi. Happy Easter, Stuart. Did you do an Easter egg hunt? Yeah, Heidi, thanks for the comment. The answer is no, simply because I can't find Easter eggs at my local supermarket. Maybe you can find them here in Madrid. I'm pretty sure that there would be some places that sell them if you go to an American supermarket, or maybe if you can find a British supermarket here in Madrid, I'm sure that you can find chocolate Easter eggs. But at my local supermarket, no chocolate Easter eggs to be found, and no hot cross buns either. So we have to rely on Spanish Easter treats. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.